Hey, what's up, family? And you're watching Fuel for the Journey. And if this is your first time here, go ahead on and subscribe, all that fun stuff. And if you're returning, welcome back. Come on in, let's talk about it. Moving from delay to drive. And so we're looking at the story in John chapter 5, verses 5 through 9, that talks about the man who was sitting by the pool for 38 years. Could you imagine what you could have been doing for 38 years? But he was living his life on delay. His life was stuck in delay. And one of the ways that your life can be stuck in delay is because you lose your hope, you lose your desire, you lose your expectation for what God can do in your life. And so Jesus saw him sitting there, but Jesus didn't just see a man sitting at the pool. Jesus saw expectations on the ground. Jesus saw dreams on the ground. Jesus saw hope on the ground, and he looked at him, and knowing how long he had been there, he said, do you want to be made whole? And that's what disappointment does. Disappointment comes in and it robs you from going after God. Disappointment comes in and it robs you from going for what God has called you to be. So this man was sitting by the pool for 38 years, and Jesus said, do you want to be made whole? That's a clue right there, because sometimes in life God has to ask us a question, not because he don't know the answer, so it can remind us what it is that we're supposed to be doing, so it can remind us what it is that we're supposed to be going after. And so Jesus, seeing this man sitting by the pool for 38 years, he said, do you want to be made whole? The man said, I have nobody to put me in the pool. The man gave Jesus an excuse, because when you don't have an answer, you come up with excuses. When you're out of solutions, you just come up with excuses. When you're out of the reason of why you're not being responsible for your moment, you come up with excuses. When you don't know how to take responsibility, what God has put into your hands, you create excuses. But no more excuses. Put it at the bottom of the screen. No more excuses. Yeah, because now Jesus comes. He comes not to address the excuse, but he comes to address this issue that you've been sitting here. He comes to address this delay. He comes to address this problem. And he says, do you still want it? And that's what God asks us today. Do you still want what I told you? Do you still believe me for greater? Do you still want what you desired that was in your heart? Do you still want it? Because it's nothing like delay that makes you change your mind about what God says. It's nothing like delay to make you quit on what God says. He says, do you still want? Do you want to be made whole? He gave him excuse. But what I love about Jesus, Jesus did not address his excuse. But Jesus said, take up your bed and walk. How do you get out of delay? When you recognize that there is something greater than what I'm experiencing right now. How do you get out of delay? When you understand that greater is he that's within me than he that is in the world. How do you get out of delay? When you understand that he knows the thoughts that I think toward you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a hope and a future. How do you get out of delay? When you understand that no good thing will he withhold from those who walk upright. And so now he tells the man, pick up your bed. I want you to pick up your bed, because his bed represents his place of residency. He says, because when I deliver you from this place, you're not going back to it. He says, pick up your bed and walk. He says, this is how you get out of delay. You've got to put movement behind what I said. This is how you get out of delay. You got to put action and faith behind what I've told you. Pick up your bed and walk. Pick up your dream and walk. Pick up what I gave you and walk. Pick up what brought you here and walk. He says, because now I come to move you from delay to drive. And so Jesus tells him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. And the Bible says, and immediately the man was made whole. See, healing doesn't come, restoration doesn't come until you obey. And sometimes we want God to do it all, but we don't want to obey. But the Bible says that when he took up his bed and walked, the Bible says, and immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. He was made whole. Why? Because he grabbed hold to faith. And on the same day was the Sabbath. God says, I'm going to allow you to do some things on a day people thought that you should be dying. I'm going to allow you to do some things on a day that was not even set aside for your promise. He says, because you're able to take hold of the promise. So don't live your life in delay. But how you get out of delay is through obedience. How you get out of delay, come on, is when you trust God. How you get out of delay is when you depend and lean on God. How you get out of delay will determine how you move next in God. Moving from delay to drive. This man was sitting by the pool, not understanding that his day of opportunity was knocking. And God says, in order for you to move out of delay to drive, you got to obey my instructions. So until next time, this has been another fuel for the journey. Have a good one. Bye-bye.